They called him Cade Parker, but in the system he had a different name, Inmate A1903. He wasn't big. He didn't have tattoos crawling up his neck or scars from gang wars. He looked like any other 17-year-old, lean and quiet, eyes sunken from too many nights staring at a concrete ceiling. But Cade didn't need muscles. He had something far more dangerous, his mind. 3 years ago, he'd hacked into a secure federal database from a foster home computer. Not just any data, witness protection files. The breach caused a full-scale federal emergency. One informant went missing, another turned up dead. When the FBI traced the digital fingerprints back to a teenager in a dusty basement in Pittsburgh, no one believed it at first. But there he was, 15, barely 5'9", no parents, a ward of the state with a laptop full of secrets. They expected to find a kid who was scared. Instead, they found a kid who smiled when the agents broke down his door. He wanted to be found. Cade wasn't just a hacker, he was a manipulator. He knew how to make people like him, and more importantly, how to make them underestimate him. When he finally ended up in the custody of the juvenile system, they didn't know where to put him. He wasn't just dangerous, he was unpredictable. So they built a new wing for him. Black Ridge Correctional Facility for Youth Offenders. A place that housed the worst of the worst, arsonists, killers, cartel-linked teens. But even here, Cade was an anomaly. He'd never fired a gun, never stabbed anyone. But somehow he made everyone around him uneasy, even the staff, especially the staff. The guards referred to him behind closed doors as the Fox. He never got into fights, never yelled. He followed every order to the letter, said yes sir and no ma'am. Made his bed with perfect folds, ate in silence, showed up early to therapy. He was polite, chillingly polite. But every now and then, something small would break the illusion. A camera feed would glitch for half a second. A fire alarm would go off with no cause. A guard would report missing keys, only to find them hours later exactly where they were supposed to be. And always, Cade had an alibi. A smile, a shrug, a way of looking you in the eyes that made you second-guess what you thought you knew. Dr. Meredith Klein, the prison psychologist, once told a colleague, "He's not broken. He's rehearsing, waiting for something. I don't know what, but that boy's planning something." She was right. But no one listened. To the system, he was reformed. Model inmate. A success story in progress. During his evaluations, he spoke about guilt, about trauma, about how he wanted to get better. He used all the right words, knew all the emotional cues. He didn't just play the game, he rewrote the rules while they were playing. In his last quarterly report, the board labeled him low threat to staff and peers. They even discussed the possibility of early release on conditional supervision when he turned 18. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, the news was everywhere. Breaking: dangerous juvenile escapes from high-security youth prison. System failure or inside job? Investigation underway at Black Ridge Correctional? No one knew how he did it. There were no broken doors, no missing vehicles, no signs of struggle or forced entry. It was as if Cade Parker had simply vanished. And in his cell, perfectly made as always, sat a single sheet of paper taped to the wall. Typed, clean, signed at the bottom with his inmate number. "I told you I was getting better. You thought I meant healing. I meant smarter. See you soon." A 11903. Now the entire country was looking for him, the boy they thought they could reform, the boy they thought they understood, the fox they locked in a cage, who was never really locked up at all. In the sterile glow of the prison's library, Cade Parker sat quietly at a table, flipping through a torn copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. Fitting, he thought. No one noticed the book's hollowed-out center, just wide enough to conceal a circuit board, a micro USB, and a paper-thin screen no bigger than a credit card. The contraband tech wasn't smuggled in by force. He didn't need threats or bribes. He'd earned it, slowly, methodically. Over 6 months, he manipulated the inmate in the supply crew, made friends with the maintenance boy who worked part-time, and charmed the prison librarian into letting him help with book sorting. Every favor, every smile, every word, It was all chess. Every piece moved toward one goal: access. His custom-built device piggybacked on the prison's internal Wi-Fi. It wasn't designed for browsing or entertainment. It had one purpose: exploit the system's vulnerabilities from the inside. He didn't need passwords. He created them. Using a flaw in the outdated security firmware, Cade tunneled into the prison's admin database. Within an hour, he had guard schedules, transfer protocols, and internal communication records. But he wasn't reckless. He downloaded nothing, changed nothing, yet. Instead, he studied. For weeks. And then quietly, he built his masterpiece, a forged transfer order. Not a sloppy fake. This was indistinguishable from the real thing. Complete with state seals, marshal signatures, reference numbers, and a digital verification code that he'd pulled from a real transfer form 2 months ago. But even a perfect document wouldn't work alone. He needed someone to believe it. Enter Officer Thomas Riley, 21 years old, fresh out of training, and nervous every time he walked the prison floor. Cade had been watching him for weeks. Riley was exactly the kind of person he could mold: young, insecure, eager to prove himself. So Cade became nice. Not overly friendly, not suspicious. Just enough eye contact. A thank you here. I have a good shift there. Riley started pausing at Cade's cell, making small talk, asking how he was holding up. Cade opened up, carefully, told stories, part truth, part fiction, made Riley feel trusted, important. Then one day, after weeks of small talk, Cade dropped the bait. "Funny thing," he said through the bars. "Doc Klein mentioned something about a transfer coming up, closer to my caseworker. Didn't think I'd ever get out of here." He smiled. "Guess people do change." Riley blinked. "Really? You're getting moved?" Cade shrugged as if it didn't matter. "I mean, nothing official yet. She just said soon." The next day, Riley spotted a digital memo in the staff system. Transfer notice. Inmate A1903, approved for federal relocation. Marshal pickup scheduled. Exactly what Cade had wanted him to see. And the best part? The memo didn't raise red flags with anyone higher up, because Cade had buried it in a real chain of upcoming movements. It looked authentic because it was authentic, just forged to include one extra name. His. Riley approached him later that night, looking proud. "Hey, saw your notice. Congrats, man. Looks like you're out of here." Cade gave a soft, measured smile. "Yeah, guess they finally believe me." As Riley walked away, Cade's eyes followed him, cold and calculating. Everything was in place: the document, the belief, the human error. He didn't need to escape with violence, he just needed them to open the door. It was a gray Thursday morning, the kind no one paid much attention to. Rain tapped steadily against the windows of Blackridge Correctional, and most of the guards were more focused on staying dry than watching the transfer logs. In the hallway near the intake bay, Cade stood quietly in a crisp black uniform, complete with a silver badge, authentic shoulder patches, and a U.S. Marshal's ID card clipped to his vest. He looked every bit the part: confident, controlled, official. But the uniform wasn't real. It was stitched by a former inmate tailor over the course of 2 months, assembled piece by piece, smuggled in one item at a time, and hidden behind a false panel inside the maintenance room wall. Cade had tested the materials, researched the colors, even chemically aged the badge to look authentic under inspection. He didn't just wear the disguise, he became it. Riley, the rookie guard, was waiting at the gate, clipboard in hand, just like Cade had predicted. "Marshal Cooper?" he asked, uncertain but trusting. Cade nodded without smiling. "You got the package ready?" Riley turned and waved toward the hallway. Moments later, another inmate, shaved head, cuffed, and wearing Cade's uniform, was escorted down the hall. The kid was similar in height and build, just enough to pass for Cade under stress. His name was Mateo, and he owed Cade a favor that couldn't be refused. In exchange, his family was already wired $10,000 through untraceable digital wallets. Mateo didn't need to talk. That was part of the plan. Riley gestured toward the clipboard. Signature? Cade pulled out a forged stylus pen with a chipped ID chip inside. When it tapped the digital screen, it registered him as Marshall Cooper from the U.S. Justice Department. Another forgery, another exploit. Everything looks good, Riley said, unlocking the transfer gate. Guess this is it, huh? Cade gave him a tight nod. We appreciate the cooperation. Then he turned, nodded to the guards without a trace of hesitation, and walked the decoy out of the prison. No one questioned it. No alarms sounded. Just a quiet departure under the cover of routine. Once outside, they climbed into the transport vehicle. The license plate was legitimate, but the truck had been stolen weeks earlier and refitted with federal decals. Mateo sat silently in the back, playing the part, while Cade climbed into the driver's seat and peeled off down the road. 5 miles out, they reached a gas station with a side alley leading to an abandoned storage unit. The switch was surgical. Mateo was uncuffed, handed a burner phone, and instructed to disappear. Cade stripped out of the marshal uniform, threw it into a burning drum, and stepped into a new identity: jeans, a faded hoodie, sunglasses. Within minutes, he was indistinguishable from 1,000 other kids trying to disappear into America. At 11:43 a.m., an officer at Blackridge attempted to confirm the arrival at the transfer location via federal database. There was no record. By noon, the prison was locked down. By 1 p.m., Cade Parker's face was on every national broadcast, labeled America's Most Wanted Teen. But it was already too late. Traffic cameras last caught sight of the stolen transport vehicle at a highway intersection in Ohio, 2 states away. Inside, no one was found. Just a message, scrawled on the inside of the windshield in permanent marker: "Don't chase the fox. You'll only lose the forest." By the time authorities launched a multi-state manhunt, Cade had already ditched the van, crossed the border, and disappeared into a bus terminal using a fake student ID. He didn't run, he walked, right out the front door.